This conference will now be recorded.
Good afternoon, madam, and dear participants. Welcome back. So, let us continue with our fifth session 5 on supervised learning by Dr. Akanksha Sharaf. Madam, over to you, madam.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you, madam.
So the slides are visible.
No, madam. Now it's visible, madam.
Uh, oh, it's visible now. Okay.
Could
Okay.
yeah,
Thank you.
yes, madam. Could you please make it to full screen, madam? Yes. Yes, it's
Yeah,
fine,
yeah,
madam.
it's full screen, sir. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Okay. Thank
yeah,
you.
fine. Thank you, madam.
Okay, so as previously I have discussed about the some introductory topic about the machine learning, the terms which are associated with machine learning, the types or the methodologies which have been included in machine learning algorithm, and some of the applications also. So now we will discuss the very first learning approach, that is supervised learning. And as in the previous session also, I have discussed about the supervised learning, that supervised learning is nothing but we have to give us some supervision over the learning approach, that there will be some supervising element in terms of labels, you can say. So that is basically the supervised machine learning. Now I'm just giving an example, that suppose an emergency room in a hospital measures 17 variables, for example blood pressure, age, like they will also it will also include a lot of things, like they will test for blood test also, diabetic test also. So there are some 17 variables. This variable represents the, you can say, the preliminary test of human being or the patient, of newly admitted patients. Now, what a decision is needed here, that whether to put a new patient in an intensive care unit, or he or she will be get put it in a normal room, or normal, you can say, semi ward, or any type of room. So due to the high cost of intensive care unit, those patients who may survive less than a month are given the higher priority. Suppose I have decided that that type of task that previously I have discussed, that the machine learning will be able to perform some task, and according to that task we have to measure the performance parameters. Clear? So suppose I want to make a task of this one, that the patients who may survive less than a month will be getting higher priority as compared to the other patients. Clear? So that is my task. Now what will be the problem here, that we have to predict here the high risk patients and discriminate them from low risk patient. Clear? Like here the problem is, to high risk patient we have to distinguish, means the labels will be clearly defined here, that high risk patient and the low risk patient. Means high risk patient means those patients that have a chance to survive less than a month, and low risk patient means they can survive for more than a month also, or they will have some preliminary means like any simple problems there. Clear? So we have to distinguish between the patients that who are at the high risk and who are at the low risk. So these two classes will be there for the patients. Now suppose another application is there. Now a credit card company receives thousands of applications for new cards, and each application contains information about an applicant, like some age will be there, marital status, annual salary, outstanding debts, credit rating, etc. Clear? Now so what is the problem here? Like suppose if any credit card employer will came to us and take our all this information related to our name, age, marital status, annual salary, we have some debts or not, outstanding debts or not, or there, or what is our credit rating towards the credit card. So here what should be the problem here, to decide whether an application should be approved, or to classify applications into two categories, that is approved or not approved. So this is my task, that I have to distinguish, or I have to classify the credit card application, that whether a particular application can be approved or not approved. Clear? So this approval task will have a lot of challenges, you can say. Like suppose the annual salary is one of the very important feature for the credit card holder, that if his annual salary is sufficient in order to pay the credit card debts, so he or she will get approved. So a lot of logics will be here applied in order to approve that credit card application. Clear? So this is one of the example, or you can say the application where the supervised learning can be used. Now, what machine learning features can be used here, and what should be our focus towards this one? So, like I have already discussed that, like human learning, we have to means what human, how human will learn. That human will learn from his past experiences, and the how computer will learn. It doesn't have experiences, but it has to gather the experience by learning from data. And how it will learn? It will learn from the training data. Clear? Like suppose if I have to perform a function, then I have to train the data, whatever the data I have, then I have to train that data, and based on that data I can analyze the new data. If I am feeding that new data to a system, so I can analyze its behavior and classify it according to my previous training data. Clear? Behavior of the previous training data. So what should be our focus here? That learn a target function that can be used to predict the values of a discrete class attribute. Discrete class means some specific classes we have to determine. Like there is a two classes like approve or not approved, and there is another class like high risk or low risk. Clear? So our focus should be to learn a target function that can be used to predict the values of a discrete class attribute. Clear? Now, this task is for distinguishing this task. It is commonly known as your supervised learning, or you can say the classification or inductive learning also. Clear? So this is the logic behind the supervised learning, that we have to learn from the past experiences, and that for past experiences we can we should be able to classify the new data whether it should belong to which class. Now, supervised learning is also known as supervised machine learning, which is a subcategory of machine learning and artificial intelligence. And basically, the supervised learning is a learning in which we teach or train the machine using data which is well labeled. That means some data is already tagged with correct answer. Like I already told you that suppose if I have chosen email as one of my data sets, so there can be two classes like spam and ham. So this is what predefined labels should be defined, should be given for a particular data set. After that, the machine will be provided with a new set of examples, so that the supervised learning algorithm analyzes the training data, that is set of training samples, and produces a correct outcome from labeled data. Like I also told that there will be some training data and some test data. Clear? So the training data will be used in order to analyze the behavior of your data, that what type of behavior is that, whether that message is spam message, and what type of messages are come under the ham messages. And now when we applying the test data, suppose I have 1 to 10 emails as my test data. So when I'm feeding this email 1 to my system, so it will analyze through this behavior that whether that email has which type of behavior, like spam behavior or ham behavior. In previous itself I told you that I have to make a dictionary of spam words. This is the manual task I'm saying that and if you are using the machine learning approaches, then it will use like support vector machines are there, decision trees are there, and your rule based induction mechanism are there, bayesian network is there, neural networks are there. So a lot of classification techniques are there through which we are able to train our data. Clear? So that is what, that the data is divided into two sets, that is training and testing, and also the predefined labels also, like which category of emails are belonging to spam and which emails are belonging to ham messages. Now, this supervised learning is a two-step process. Two-step process means that first we have to learn and then we have to test. So this learning phase is also known as your training phase, where we have to learn our model using the training data. Clear? And in testing data, we have to test the model using unseen test data to assess the model accuracy. Clear? So here you can see through the diagram that here we have the training data, like suppose 700 emails are there in our training data. Then we have some learning algorithm over here, like we have the SVM or any algorithm you can take which can learn from here. And this is the model also, that through learning algorithm we have to model our data set, and then we will test the data. Like suppose if we have 300 emails in this test data, so according to the test data we have to analyze these 300 emails, that whether 300 emails will belong to that particular class or not. And if it belongs to that part, like suppose I told you that email has two labels, that is spam and ham. Suppose it is have 1000 emails, and here spam is having 300 emails and 700 emails. Clear? Now I have trained my data using that. Suppose in training set I have I have 200 spam and 600 ham messages. Clear? So among this 800 emails I am going for training. So among these 800 emails I am training the my model, and after then that, after training, till this phase is for your training phase. Clear? For this, now suppose I have remaining 100 spam messages and 100 ham messages. Now for this 100 it will be club up. Clear? Means total we have 200 emails as as a normal emails. Now I have to test this 200 emails. So according to that 200 emails, now I have to decide that whether that email is belonging to the correct class or not. And if it is belonging to the correct class, that is, suppose I am now testing, suppose e of 899 899 email I am checking. So if I am checking this 800 email number 899, so when I am testing this data, suppose it is after testing through our model, I have identified that this email belongs to your ham message. Clear? And but according to the labels which I have in my data set, it belongs to your spam message. So it is not correctly classified. Clear? And suppose in the label also it is identified as ham, then it will correctly classified, so its accuracy will be improved. Clear? So according to that it will identify that whether a particular message is ham or spam. It is not I'm not saying that if that particular message is ham, then the labeled data in the label data set also it is classified as ham itself. Clear? So there will be contradictory also, and that's why we are identifying the accuracy parameter, that is number of correct classifications upon total number of test cases. Total number of test cases means how many number of you can say emails we have considered, and among those emails how many number of emails have been correctly classified. Means suppose if I am testing one email, so if it is belonging to spam according to our model. Clear? And in the labeled data also that email comes under the spam, so it is correctly classified. Clear? Now if I am training our next email, and if it is classified as a ham message, but in the label data it is not the ham message, so it is incorrectly classified. Clear? So we have to take only the number of correct classifications upon the total number of test cases. So according to that we can find out the accuracy of a particular model. Now, what should be the data and what should be our goal? So data should be a set of data records, also called examples, instances or cases, which will be described by k attributes like a1, a2 and so on till ak. And these are what attributes you can say, or in case of emails we can call it as features also. And there will be a class, that is each example is labeled with a predefined class. Each example means each email you can say, like in terms of emails, so each email will be labeled with a predefined class also, and that predefined class can be either spam or ham message. Now what should be our goal? Hello, my voice is not audible.
It's audible, madam.
Audible?
Audible,
Okay.
madam.
So okay, thank you, sir. So now what should be our goal? That the goal is to learn a classification model from the data that can be used to predict the classes of new future or test cases oblique instances. Clear? Now this is our goal, that we have to build a classification model or any model from the data set which we have been provided, and now we have to predict the class of that new data. Clear? Like suppose in case of emails, I have take 200 as the test data. So now I have to predict that one, that for which particular class it will belong. So that is my goal. Now, what do you mean by learning, or how we have to train the data? So first we have to given a data set D. Now we have to perform a task T, that suppose if I am considering high risk patient and low risk patient, so that is my task, that we have to classify the data set or the data which we have among these two classes. So that two classes is nothing but your binary classes, you can say. And then at last we have to measure the performance of your model. So how to measure the performance? By considering the test data as well as the training data. So a computer system is said to learn from D, that is data set, to perform the task T, if after learning the system's performance on T, that is the task, improves as measured by M. Clear? Means ultimately when we are considering any data set, so our model should be that much efficient that the data set, whatever the task we want to perform, the after learning the model should improve its performance. Clear? So that is our main goal, that the performance of the system can be improved. Clear? And that improvement over the performance can be accuracy. In terms of accuracy, you can analyze. In terms of precision, recall, any performance parameter you can analyze. Clear? So in other words, the learned model helps the system to perform T better as compared to no learning. Clear? So this learning model helps us to perform the system, and it will obviously, if we are going for the supervised learning or any learning criteria, so the result whatever we obtained, it will be better as compared to no learning process. Means if we are not going for training, so obviously its result will degrade. Clear? So the if we are going for learning process, then the system performance will also be improved. Now some of the important concepts which we have to consider in our supervised learning is that first is that we have to consider the labeled instances. For example, emails as a spam or ham, या फिर not spam you can consider. And second one is that we have to consider the training set, test set, that is training data, testing data, and one very important is your holdout set. Clear? So what is holdout set, I will discuss it. And the next point is what? Features, that is the attribute value pairs which categorize each x, that is your feature, you can say, or the attribute of your feature. Now what is holdout set? So the available data set D is divided into two disjoint subsets, that is your training set and the testing set. Clear? Now what is important here, the training set should not be used in testing and the test set should not be used in training or learning, you can say. Clear? So that is very important, that suppose if I have for 200 data or 200 files, so among those files if I have considered 150 for training data and 50 for testing data, so that 50 whatever the data we have considered for the testing data, it won't be a part of your training data, and the data which we have considered for the training data, it can't be a part of your testing data. Clear? So it should be very important that we have to distinguish among the training and testing data, and none of the data should be a part of any of the set. So this test set which doesn't consist of any of the data in training set is called as your holdout set. Clear? So the examples in the original data set D are all labeled with classes, that is your labeling of the data set has already been done. So this method is mainly used when the data set D is very large, means when our data set size is very large, at that time we are using this holdout set. Now next important point which we have to consider is here experimentation cycle. That is, we have to learn the parameters on the training set. Second, we have to tune the hyperparameters on held out set. we have to compute the accuracy of the test set, and very important that we have to never peek at the test set. Means we can't consider a lot of data in the test set. There should be a proper ratio between the training and the testing data. Now what evaluation criteria we can use here, that is your accuracy. Accuracy is nothing but it is the fraction of instances predicted correctly, you can say. Clear? Next one is your overfitting. We have to avoid the problem of overfitting and generalization. What is overfitting? That we have to like suppose if there is a good accuracy on training data but poor accuracy on test data, that is what your overfitting problem exists here. So we have to maintain the ratio of this training and testing data so that we can achieve the accuracy for training as well as the testing data, combined training and testing data, a good accuracy. It can't be that we are getting a good accuracy for training data but we are getting the low accuracy or poor accuracy for the testing data. So there is some mechanism to avoid this overfitting problem also, like pre-pruning, post-pruning is there. Now I am giving some real example of supervised learning. Like suppose there are two classes, apple and banana, you can say. So there are, I have chosen these two classes as like red apple and green apple, and here it is red banana and green banana. Clear? So this both of these are sub labeled, you can say, that is label 1 and label 3, label 4 and label 5, but ultimately it is belonging to the label apple, and it is belonging to the category banana. So now what the supervised learning will do here, the if I have to check, or that is your training data, you can say this 4 are training data. Now I have to test this yellow apple, to which class it will belong. Clear? So here the model predictor will identify here that this apple will belong to which particular class, so it will predict the label. Here these two stages of model predictor are there. So here the predicted label will come, and that predicted label will be nothing but it will be in the form of your apple. Clear? So this is the task of your supervised learning, that we have to first train among this 4 data. After then that we are going to test apple, and then that testing apple will be going to the class after performing the test data or experimentation. Then it will belong to the class of apple. So this is what supervised learning. Now there is one very important theorem in machine learning, that is no free lunch theorem in machine learning, which is given by Wolpert in 2001, and it deals with that for any two learning algorithms there are just as many situations in which algorithm 1 is superior to algorithm 2 as vice versa according to any of the measures of superiority. Clear? So here, what did it mean by the no free lunch theorem? That if we are comparing the two learning algorithms or two classification algorithms, clear? So there will be at least one of the parameter where we can analyze those two algorithms, and we found that algorithm 1 will perform better as compared to the algorithm 2. It can't be same in all of the parameters. So that's why we can say that one algorithm is higher superior to the other algorithm. So that is the no free lunch theorem in machine learning. Now what is the curse of dimensionality? That is the less is more. So learning from a high dimensional feature space requires an enormous amount of training to ensure that there are several samples with each combination of values, and with a fixed number of training instances the predictive power reduces as the dimensionality increases. And as a counter measure, many dimensionality reduction techniques have been proposed, and it has been shown that when done properly, the properties or structures of the objects can be well preserved even in the lower dimensions also. So here I will just gist about that one, that what is the curse of dimensionality. Like suppose if we have a very high dimension. Clear? If we our data set is of very high dimension, or a lot of data is there in our data set, so it can't be good to us also, so we have to filter out those features in the data set. So how to filter out that? So here we are using the dimensionality reduction techniques. Clear? So what exactly the dimensionality reduction techniques will do, that it will reduce the dimensions. Means how it will reduce the dimension? There are some feature, you can say, selection as well as the extraction process, through which we are able to identify the very relevant features. Means the features which are exactly resemblance to our work, because there are a lot of features also which are not of our use. Clear? So in order to, you can say, in order to reduce that feature, or in order to make fruitful features to our data set, we have to use some feature extraction or feature selection process, so that we can get only the lower dimensions of the features. And this lower dimension means, it is not like that if we are reducing the number of features, then our system will not perform well. But it is just reverse, that if we are reducing the feature size, or the number of features, you can say, so it can give us the good result also. Because ultimately we have to deal with that type of features which are required for our analysis purpose. So that is the curse of dimensionality, that if we have the lesser dimension, it can be also give a good accuracy result. Now, what are the supervised learning problems are here? So here there are two main types of supervised learning problems. First one, we are dealing with the classification that will predict the class level, and second one is the regression, which involves predicting a numerical value. So what is here classification? That classification is the process of categorizing things on the basis of properties, and organisms are grouped together when they have common features. Like classification itself deals with that we have to classify the data according to the predefined labels itself. Clear? And that predefined labels are nothing but they are they form a group with some common features. Now regression, when to use regression? That regression will be used to forecast, you can say, like whenever we are analyzing any time series data, so we have to forecast it. So like weather forecasting is one of the important area where we can predict that what should be the climate in a particular region. So that type of forecasting we can do. Like in stock market also, the stock prediction forecasting will be there. That suppose if within 10 days, if some stock has gaining a high rise, so after 10 days, what should be its prediction? That so according to that we can forecast the stock prediction market also. So this is one of the this is another example of regression technique. Means whereas means based on the timing, what should be the analysis, so we have to consider here the time parameter also. So the regression will basically deal with the time series models. Now here first I will deal with the binary class, like supervised learning. Here it is multi-class. So first here binary class, like suppose I have chosen that email example itself. So email can be categorized as a spam and ham. So here how many classes is there? This is class 1 and this is class 2. So where there are two classes, so it is nothing but it comes under your binary classification. And when we are considering more than two classes, like suppose here when in Gmail account, you can see that we are getting the priority inbox also, like promotions, promotions, promotions label is there, inbox is there. Clear? And you can say like updates are there. So a lot of labelings are there in emails itself. In Gmail itself, you can see there. So a lot of labelings are given there. So it is nothing but it is a multi-class learning. Clear? So here the multi-class learning refers to the classification problem where each example can be assigned to one class label. Clear? Here the red, blue, green and yellow, these are what? Class labels. Clear? The color is class label. Like suppose Here some data set is there, and we are considering the 4 classes, that is red, blue, black and yellow. Clear? So these are what, how many classes are there? 4 classes are there. So it is what, multiple classes we have, and to that class, particular to that class, each example will be assigned. Each example means, suppose if I have E1, E2, E3 till E10. Clear? So suppose if E1 belongs to red class, then that E1 won't belong to the black class. Means particular each email will be associated to exactly one class. Means no labeling of multiple email. Sorry, means one email can't be associated with multiple classes. Clear? So that is the funda of multi-class, that exactly one example or each example will be assigned to only one class label. Clear? It won't be assigned to multiple class labels. So this is what multi-class classification or multi-class supervised learning. Now next one is multi-label classification. So now, what is multi-label classification here? That multi-label learning refers to the classification problem where each example can be assigned to multiple class labels simultaneously. So what exactly here it deals with, that multi-label classification. Here suppose I have again 4 classes, that is red, green, blue, likewise that. So here E1 can be associated to either red or blue. Sorry, either red or blue, or E2 can be associated to red, comma yellow, or red, comma black. Means here one example can be assigned to the multiple class labels. Clear? So that is what the supervised learning or the concept of multi-label class classification, where each email can be assigned, or each data you can say can be assigned to more than one classes or to multiple classes. Now, what are the supervised learning or classification applications? Like pattern recognition is one of the very good example of classification or supervised learning. Second one is your face recognition. Like I have given the example that yeah, if I want to recognize the face like the humans. So human can recognize the faces very easily if they will change the pose, or if they have changed some getup of theirs, like if there are some glasses or some beard is there in face, so the humans are able to recognize the faces. But if in terms of machine, the machine won't be able to recognize the faces accurately if we have feeded the data of, like suppose someone has not beard. Clear? Or someone didn't put on or didn't wear the glasses. So we have the plain image which we have fed it to our machine, and when we are giving the test data in the form of person who has wear the glasses or the person who has beard, so the machine won't be able to recognize that type of images. So that type of images we have to give as an input to the machine again and again, that is based on the pose, position or the angle of the face, the based on the lighting, the based on the occlusion, that is whatever the person has wear anything. So according to that we have to change the image captured angles, as well as the, you can say, the angle of that image, as well face, as well as the pose of that face. Clear? So ultimately we have to update the database regularly in order to recognize, or in order to make the system able to recognize the face of a particular person. Now, second one is your character recognition. Like suppose different persons have different handwriting styles. So how to recognize it? So the machine learning has the ability to recognize that type of characters, that how significantly the machine will be able to recognize the handwriting of a particular person also. So that type of things can also be done based on the image processing. It comes under the image processing area itself. Now second one is the speech recognition, that is the temporal dependency application. Here we are using a dictionary or the syntax of the language, and the sensor fusion will also be applied here, which will combine the multiple modalities, for example visual or leap image and the acoustic of our speech. So speech recognition has also one of the application where the supervised learning or classification can be applied. Next one is your medical diagnosis. Medical diagnosis means, like, suppose if there is some patient P1, P1, P2, P3, suppose if he is suffering from some heart disease, P2 is suffering from, suppose, some a diabetic patient is, P3 is suffering from any cancer related disease, and similarly there are other patients also like P4, P5, P6, likewise that. So in medical diagnosis, I'm just telling one of the example where we can apply the machine learning. That suppose we have that type of 100 patients record we have in a hospital. Now we want to categorize those records, that particular which patients are suffering from the heart disease, which patient is suffering from the diabetic disease, which patients are related to cancer related disease, or any gynec disease they can have. So according to that, I want to classify those patient details or patient records, that particularly for if I want to check for the heart related patients, so I can means one can easily able to identify that particularly these patients are suffering from the heart disease. Clear? So that is the one of the example or application where the classification technique can be applied in medical diagnosis system. Now next one is what? Web advertising. That is, predict if a user clicks on an ad on the internet. Like, is advertising means how to categorize this web advertising. Like, suppose if I am a user and I have liked some advertisement in, suppose, in Facebook or any social media over the internet, and suppose second user will also click that that advertisement. So according to that, the advertisement page will get a high number of hit as compared to the miss. So its advertisement is going more popular. Clear? And according to that, we can make a classification also, that how many number of users have liked that one, or how number of users have visited that web page. Clear? And we can make a comparative study of this web advertising also, that how many number of peoples are able or are liking that web page, and how number of users are visiting that web page. Clear? So this is one of the application where we can use the supervised learning. Next one is text classification. This text classification can be used in any one of the social networking site also, like Amazon movie reviews, Facebook. Here the text classification can be done based on the recommendation, like who are the users who are recommending that particular movie, and what type of users like a particular, like suppose there are some user 1, user 2, user 3, user 4, and user 5. User 1 suppose like some you can say the horror related movies. You 2 like some means you can say adventure related movies. You 3 like some romantic movies, likewise that. So a lot of classes can be there for a movie, like inspirational movies can be also there. Kids related movies are also there. So according to that, we can the particular group of users. Clear? We can create a group of users who are liking to a particular type of movie. So we can also create here the recommendation based on classifying the number of users. So that is one of the application where the supervised learning can be used. And a lot of other algorithms or a lot of other classification applications are also there, which can be which can use a supervised learning concept. Now here I have given the example of a spam filter itself, that the input will be a email and output will be a spam or ham. Now what type of setup I have to I have to do it? That first one is I have to gather a large collection of emails which should be labeled, predefined labeled with spam or ham. And someone has to like if we are going for a manual, if we are not if we have not that type of data set which is already labeled, so manually we have to label it. And then we want to learn or predict the labels of new oblique future emails. Clear? Now next one is features, the attributes used to make the ham oblique spam decision. First one are the words, like free is the word which can be used to identify the message as ham or not. Means this type of syntax should be there, like capital letters and then exclamation mark. So this type of words or marks or symbols can be used in order to identify the spam messages. Second one is your text patterns, like what type of pattern a particular message will have. Like here you can say instead of using add, he is using dollar dd caps. Caps word is also there. Clear? So this type of patterns we have to analyze in order to identify the spam messages. Clear? And third one is that who are the senders or who are the receivers in context, so that we can easily identify that particular message will belong to spam or ham. Here I have given one example here. Like it is written, dear sir, first I must solicit your confidence in this transaction. This is by virtue of its nature as being utterly confidential and top secret. Clear? So this type of words, like if I am using the word transaction here, so here the nature word utterly, confidential and top secret. So here in this message, the top secret, what is your secret in this message, I didn't found. So this type of message we can use it, like here after full stop there is three full stop again. Clear? So that type particular like here after this dear sir a full stop is there. So instead of using this, means this is not only one example, like after dear sir it can be a typo mistake also, but we have to identify the letters also. Like here you can see here all the words are written in the capital. In the second one example, here it is using dollar 99, 99 million email address for only this much. Clear? So we have to able to analyze these messages and able to identify whether that particular message will belong to spam or ham. Like suppose I am giving you one example. Now you have to tell me that whether this message is spam or ham. Can anyone tell whether this message is spam and ham? I am giving 1 minute. Just analyze this message and tell me whether this is a spam message or ham message. Okay. Can you tell me why it is a spam message? Can anyone tell that why this message is a spam message?
Actually, ma'am, I think it is a recipients are unclosed recipients. That is foremost thing that we have to
Yeah,
consider that to categorize
yeah,
as spam.
yes. And second one is the, here I am telling you that why this is a spam message. Like one of the answer I have also request that undisclosed, then grades. Clear? So now a lot of words are there through which we can consider this is a spam message. Like here this is misspelling of grades, that is grades news. Clear? So this is one of the typo error which we can use it for identifying it as a spam. Apart from this, we have important notice. Clear? And in this important notice, one punctuation mark is there. So it's rare that universities put explanation points in their subject, because here the from address is Stanford University. Clear? So it is very rare, which we have seen till now, that the remarkable universities or the reputed universities will use the exclamation points in their subject. Clear? Next one is your did not address, such as dear sir oblique madam. Clear? Means it is a very common thing. If we are getting the emails from foreign universities also, then also they will write that dear Sharaf or dear Dr. Sharaf, or anything which we can use it for the greeting purpose or for associating any person. So this is one of the mistake here. Next one is this undisclosed recipients, which you have answered correctly. Next one is the here, if it is a Stanford University, then why the link of this example is or the URL is not of Stanford, because it is not looking like that it is a Stanford link. Because here you can get from this sentence that you can now access the latest news by using the link below to log into Stanford University News Forum. So this URL is not of Stanford University URL. So this is one of the very important point, that the link should be, if it is not a spam message, the link should be from Stanford University itself. Clear? Next point is here, this new exciting forum. But if it is a reputed university, or you can say a recognized university, then this type of exciting words should not be there. Each of these features can be combined in a classifier, which gives us evidence to find out the email as spam. Clear? So these are some of the points which we have already, which I have discussed, that why it comes under the spam message. Clear? So we have to keep it in mind while analyzing this spam messages. Now second one is the sentiment analysis. This classification or supervised learning can also be used in sentiment analysis perspective, in order to identify the emotions or the opinions of a particular person. Clear? Like suppose this center person is very much happy, you can say. Clear? It is not satisfied, the second person is not at all satisfied with whatever she is very sad. Clear? Likewise, that a lot of emote icons are there, through which we can analyze the sentiments or sentiments of a person, and we are easily able to identify those sentiments also by using the supervised learning approach. That is your that sentiment analysis, or you can say how the sentiment analysis will move forward to your recommendation system. That is what other people think, means what is the thinking or what is the opinion of the peoples. Clear? Who are using any, suppose any topic or anything, you can see. So what we are thinking or what other people will think about us, so that is the common opinion which we can use it for analyzing the sentiments of the person also. Now, here what others think has always been an important piece of information. Before making any decision, we look for suggestions and opinions from others. Clear? Like this is a very human nature. I also followed that one itself, that before making any decision, any type of decision, we are getting like personal, profession, anything. So we have that psychology that we look for some suggestions or opinions, that what others we are means what others have opinion regarding that particular topic or any suggestion they have. So we listen to them and then try to incorporate that one in our study also, or in our behavior also, but we are taking the decision on our own self. Clear? So that is one of the very important parameter, that what other people will think. So supervised learning has also application of in this area itself. Like here I am giving you one example. Like this person is asking this person is asking a very good question, that so whom shall I ask. This picture designates only for this one, that so whom shall I ask. So first question is that which car should I buy. Clear. Suppose I want to buy a car, so I will discuss with some of the friends, some of the family members, that which is the good car, what is the mileage of that car, whether it is good or not as compared to the previous purchased car. So that type of psychology we have, and we want to discuss it, and we want to means have a thinking or opinion of others also in our real life itself. Next one is which school should I apply to. Like suppose our children are there, so we are thinking that in which school we should get admitted to our children. Now next one is which professor to work for. Like suppose we want to do any PhD. Clear. Like suppose I want to do PhD in under any guidance, so which professor we have to choose. I have to choose means what is my interest and whether the interest of the professor met or not. So which professor to work for. Whom should I vote. Like in election also, like we have the same perspective, that I should vote for which person. I should whether I should go vote for this person or that person. So there is a lot of opinions which we have to deal with, and we took the analysis or the opinion of others also. Like some person will give the excellent remark, you can say the very good opinion they have given me, so we can give them the excellent remark. So based on that remark, like in today's PhD, a lot of questionnaires have been circulated. They are working on the real life domain, you can say. So based on that real life domain, they are working excellently. So what is the they are making some means some, you can say, some points they are making, that for a particular question I can go for this points, whether it is excellent, good, fair, poor, likewise that. So according to those points, they are making the data set of their own. Clear. And based on that data set, they are performing their task. So data set formation is also one of the very important aspect in machine learning. You can gather your own data set also. You can't depend upon the online resources itself, but you can gather the data set of your own also. Now, what are the evaluation methods which we have to use for going for supervised learning? So, for supervised learning, we have to go for n-fold cross-validation. Like, what is n-fold cross-validation? That the available data is partitioned into n equal size disjoint subsets, and we have to use each subset as the test set, and then combine the rest n minus 1 subsets as the training set to learn a classifier. Now, what is the procedure here? That we have to run the code or the program n times, and we have to maintain n accuracies. Clear. And the final accuracy will be the average of that n accuracies. While doing research, we most of us are going in a confused manner, that we are, whenever we are writing any research article, at that time we normally designate the best accuracy, but it is not the correct way. Always go for the average accuracy. Suppose if you have the 10 number of epochs or 10 number of cycles you have made, so among that 10 number of epochs, whatever the accuracies you are getting, just average those accuracy, and that will be your final accuracy. Don't go for the best accuracy. It is not a good idea to use that research. And normally the 10-fold cross validation and 5-fold cross validations are commonly used in our research scenario, and these methods are used when the available data is not too large. Clear. When our data size is not too large, then we can go for n-fold cross validation, and mostly we are using the 10-fold cross validation itself. Second evaluation method is your leave one out cross validation. So here this method is used when the data set is very small. That is a special case of cross validation technique. Here each fold of the cross validation has only a single test example, and all the rest of the data is used in training. Clear. Means if we have suppose 1,000 number of samples, and we have 10 folds of that one, so among that 10 folds we will have 10 data points. will remain a single data for the testing purpose and remaining for the training purpose. Now validation set. What is validation set? Here that available data set is divided into three subsets. First one is your training set, second one is your validation set, and third one is your test set. Clear? So the validation set is mainly used for estimating the parameters in learning algorithms, and in such cases the values that give the best accuracy on that validation set are used as the final parameter values. Means when we are dividing our data set into three parts, that is training, testing, and validation. So whenever for getting the means whenever we are computing the results for validation set, and we get the best accuracy over the validation set, then we can consider it as for our final parameter evaluation. Clear? And for this validation set, we are normally using that cross validation technique, which I have discussed in previous slides. Now, one of the very important parameter of classification measure is the accuracy, but the accuracy which I have discussed in first half class, that but it is not also suitable in some of the applications, like in text mining application. You can say in text mining we may only be interested in the documents of a particular topic, which are only a small portion of a big document collection. So in classification involving skewed or highly imbalanced data, for example, network intrusion and financial fraud detections, we are interested only in the minority class. Like here is one example of accuracy that you just considered about the fraud detection. Clear? Like nowadays we are facing from the credit card fraud detection a lot, that a lot of these companies employees are creating the frauds on the credit card. So the number of frauds in credit card are more as compared to the, you can say, the not fraud, है ना? Means if we are combining two classes, fraud and normal, so the fraud detection in credit cards are very high as compared to the normal. So here we are considering or interested only in the minority class. What is the minority class? That is your fraud credit card holders or fraud credit card employees, means those employees which are giving the fraud credit cards. Clear? So here the accuracy will not be the suitable parameter to analyze the result. And here we are basically the class of interest will be commonly as the positive class, and the rest will be your negative class. Now, how well has the system performed? So the effectiveness of an ML system, that is machine learning system, is the quality of its search result. Clear? Here I will deal this how to compute this precision and recall based on your machine learning or text analytics, that how many number of documents have been retrieved, how many are not retrieved, what are relevant documents, what are irrelevant documents. According to that I will compute the precision and recall. Because accuracy computation I have earlier in a previous session I have discussed for how to compute the accuracy. Now we will discuss about how to compute the precision and recall in case of supervised learning. Yeah. And yeah, okay. So here we have the precision. So what is precision here? That is the fraction of retrieved documents that are relevant to the user's information need. Clear? So precision it was like, suppose we have n number of documents and we have retrieved suppose n minus 5 number of documents to us, and we found that among those n minus 5 documents we have only 5 documents relevant which are our need. Like suppose if we are searching in Amazon or Facebook, so we are retrieving a lot number of web pages. If I talk about the web pages, a lot number of web pages we can explore, and we can retrieve only some of them, so that we can make a comparative study over 2 to 3, that which is relevant to my need or the user's need. Clear? So based on that we can find the precision of a particular system. this is one of the very basic example which I told you. And second one is your recall, that is fraction of relevant documents in collection that are retrieved. That is, whatever the documents we have retrieved, the among those retrieved documents, how many are the relevant. So this will call you the recall function. Now what is the best balance between these two is, first one is to easy to get perfect recall, just retrieve anything everything. Recall means you have to retrieve everything. And easy to get good precision, that is retrieve only the most relevant, means whatever the items which are most relevant to me, I will retrieve only that one. Clear? And in recall, I have to retrieve everything. So this is one of the evaluation matrix which I am considering. Now suppose if you have considered the confusion matrix, so in confusion matrix also this type of things will be written like true, this is your false, this is suppose positive, and this is your negative. Clear? So if I will talk about true positive, true negative, suppose if I have represented this for T, this for F, this for P, and this for N. So here this relevant retrieved means true positive, and this will represent your false positive. Here it will represent true negative, and here it will retrieve false negative. So here how to find out the recall of this function is, recall is equivalent to number of relevant documents retrieved upon total number of relevant documents. Here you can say, here it is relevant retrieved, here it is not relevant means I am telling it is irrelevant. Irrelevant. Clear? So that is number of relevant documents retrieved upon total number of relevant documents. Clear? Here total number of relevant documents, you can see a TP plus TN. Clear? And number of relevant documents retrieved, that is your TP. Now precision is equivalent to number of relevant documents retrieved, that is your TP, divided by total number of documents retrieved, that is your overall the number of documents that has been retrieved, that is your TP plus FP. Likewise that. So this is the one of the performance parameter of recall and precision. Now F measure is what? One measure of performance that takes into account both recall and precision. This depicts how well our model is performing. So harmonic mean of recall and precision is F measure, that is F is equals to 2 into precision multiplied by recall divided by precision plus recall. Now here I have given one example. Like suppose I have 80 irrelevant documents and 20 relevant documents. Clear? So here how many total number of documents are there? There is 100 number of total documents. Clear? Among these irrelevant and 20 relevant documents, I have retrieved 25 documents. Clear? I don't know that how many documents are irrelevant and relevant among these 25 retrieved documents. Clear? Among this 100, I have retrieved 25 documents. Next is, among these 25 retrieved documents, I have 10 irrelevant documents and 15 relevant documents. Clear? So now my question is, what should be the precision and what should be the recall for this particular question? I'm giving you few minutes time or few seconds time. Just try to find out by yourself that what should be the precision and what should be the recall. Like here I am giving you, I will give another question. I am just explaining this question again. So here the precision will be number of relevant documents. You can see the number of relevant documents divided by number of retrieved relevant documents. Clear? So sorry, relevant retrieved documents. So this is 15 by 25. That is 15 this one and 25 this one. This is what? Retrieved relevant documents. So this is 25. Now next is recall. That is 15 divided by 2, 20. That is number of relevant documents upon 20 relevant documents. Clear? So 15 by 20 is your recall. Now next one is your F measure. F measure is what? 2 into precision into recall divided by precision plus recall. So that is your near about 67% is the F measure, and this is the formula, that is number of relevant documents retrieved, number of, here you can see this 15, it is what? Relevant document retrieved, that is relevant document retrieved upon total number of relevant documents. So what is total number of relevant documents? That is 20, total number of relevant documents. So this is the formula for precision. Sorry, not this is the recall. So here you can see the number of relevant documents retrieved, that is 15, it's fine, upon total number of relevant documents. So what is the total number of relevant documents? That is your 20. So here it is 20. So this is your recall. Now next one is your precision, that is number of relevant documents retrieved, which is 15 divided by total number of documents retrieved. So this documents retrieved can be either irrelevant or relevant also. Here in the previous slide itself we have seen that the precision can be from find out by using the total number of documents which has been retrieved. It can be either irrelevant or relevant also, but retrieved we have to consider. That is a positive, you can say. Now next question is, assume the following question, that a database has 80 records like this on a particular topic. A search was conducted on that topic and 60 records were retrieved. Clear? So here the 60 records will be retrieved. So among those 60 records retrieved, 45 were relevant, this one. So now you have to calculate the precision and recall scores for the search. So here you can see that among these 80 documents I have retrieved 60 documents. Clear? Among the 60 documents I have the relevant retrieved document as 45. So what? So this 15 will be what? Irrelevant. Clear? So now what will be my precision and recall? Just try to find out what will be the precision and recall. What about recall? Yes, precision is 75% and recall will be 56%. Why here it will be 56? Because here in among this total number of documents, it is not mentioned how many are, you can say, are relevant and irrelevant. Clear? So here it will be 45 divided by total number of documents which we have in our database. So this is what? 45 by 80. So this will be your recall. Now next question is, a system returns 8 relevant documents and 10 irrelevant documents. There are total of 20 relevant documents. Here 20 is your relevant documents. Clear? In the collection, what is the precision of the system on this search and what is its recall? So here among these 20 documents we have retrieved how many? That is 18 retrieved, because out of this 20, 8 are relevant documents and 10 are irrelevant documents. So we have retrieved 18 relevant retrieved documents. Among this, 10 is irrelevant and 8 is relevant. So precision will be 8 by 18 and recall will be 8 by 20. Now next question is, for a given query, there are 16 relevant documents in the collection. The precision for the query is 0.4 and the recall for the query is 0.25. How many documents are in the result set? This is the question. You have to tell me that in the result set how many documents will be there. So this will be the answer. Here let the result set be x. So precision will be your relevant divided by result set. That is your relevant is equals to 0.4x. Now recall will be what? Relevant by 16. Why 16? 16 is the relevant number of documents. That is your total number of documents which have been relevant. So that is your recall. So it will be recall will be your 0.25 is equals to 0.4x, that is your relevant, the value which have been obtained from the precision, divided by 16. So the value of x which we got is 10. Now so there will be 10 documents in the result set. Now this is a question that why both precision and recall metrics are required to measure or evaluate the quality or effectiveness of an IR system than just precision or recall. Clear? So here we can't use recall alone or we can't use the precision alone. We can get high recall but low precision by retrieving all the documents for all queries, and we can get high precision but low recall if we retrieve zero documents for all queries. So here we have to consider only Here we have to consider all these recall and precision values. So now this is the issues while preparing the data preparation. So this is the part of your pre-processing technique. So this will be till supervised learning. We can means you can go for the basic supervised learning approaches also, like support vector machine is there. Like 1 second, I will deal with that one. This is your support vector machine, which was invented by Vapnik and his co-workers in 1970s in Russia and became known to the West in 1992. And these SVMs are what? It can be a linear classifier also, a non-linear classifier also. Linear classifier means it will separate the data into two classes by finding a hyperplane among those data. And second one is your non-linear classifiers also, in which the hyperplane is not fixed, only single hyperplane is not fixed, and here the kernel functions will also be used for the non-linear separation also. Clear? So here the SVM not only has a rigorous theoretical foundation but also performs classification more accurately than just more than methods in applications, especially for high dimensional data. Clear? And for text classification, whatever I have observed, that it is the best classifier as compared to the other classification techniques also. Now this is the basic concept, that how to find out the hyperplane. So here for finding out the hyperplane, we use the linear function. Linear function means, like suppose wx plus b or yx plus b, anything you can consider. So if that value is greater than or equals to 0, then we can say that our function will have a one value, that is your class label. And if it is less than 0, then we can have a minus 1 value. So it is the another class labels. So according to that, we can frame a hyperplane over this also, so that it can distinguish among the two classes, that is class 1 and class 2. And this hyperplane will decide the decision boundary also, that which point I have to choose for making the class labels. Clear? Suppose if I have making the two classes, so this hyperplane, forming of this hyperplane is very important in terms of distinguish or making the labels, class labels. So this is the concept of the support vector machine. And a lot other algorithms are also there, like decision tree algorithm, rule based algorithm, which I have covered, which I have told you. And there are some neural networks also. And nowadays we are moving towards the deep learning concept also, in which basically the main you can say the main core of that deep learning is your neural network. Clear? So if you can understand that neural network from the deep learning point of view, so it will be very beneficial to you also, in order to cope up your research in deep learning as well as the machine learning area also. So that's all from my side. And if someone has any query, so he or she can ask me.
Uh, yeah, participants are requested to post your queries in the chat box. If not, you can unmute yourself and you can ask the queries. Madam, here we have a question like from one participant. Can you give some
Yeah.
idea about decision tree?
Okay, okay. Sir, what happened, like in decision tree, we have to form a, you can say, a tree like structure we have to form. Like suppose if we consider our the basic example which we can see in data mining itself, like weather related, like whether it is cloudy or rainy, or it is you can say sunny. So here we have to form a decision tree, like what type of decisions we have to take based on the data we have to analyze. Suppose we have a data in which there 4 to 5 classes are there. So according to that, we can frame a, means we have to make a decision that suppose that particular data will belong to either cloudy or what, means suppose in cloudy itself. 1 second, I will give you some brief introduction. Means there we have to make a decision over that whether it will be cloudy, rainy, or sunny, you can say. So here we have to like 3 to 4 type of decisions we can check based on the temperature itself. Like I will share my screen so that you can get a idea. Like here you can see here that decision tree is basically adopted by this ID3 C4.10 card, which is a greedy algorithm, you can say. And here I have taken one example of some persons who are playing tennis. Means according to the age group, I have divided that whose age group is less than 30, whose age group is between 31 to 40, and whose age group is greater than 40. And what is its income criteria, and whether they are a student or not, means no or yes. And based on the credit rating, means what type of credit they have. Means suppose if they are not a student, or if they are means they have some income. So what type of income, whether their income is very high or fair or excellent, likewise that I have making some classes. And whether he is able to buy the product, means computer or not, likewise that it is a very simple example which I have considered. So here we can consider here, like suppose if I am considering the age factor. Clear? I have only considered one of the feature, that is age. So based on that age, what type of persons we have. Like here I have less than 30, so I have categorized this less than 30 as young, as young person. And second one is your, suppose I have 31 to 40, the age group is between the 31 to 40, so I have categorized them as a middle aged person. And next one is whose age is greater than 40, so I have categorized those person as the high age person or senior persons, you can say. So based on that, I have make the classes of that one, so that I can frame a decision tree over here. This decision tree is based on only one of the feature. So here the youth, like here the class is there, so whether he can, the person is able, the youth person. Like youth person, I have here the four persons are belonging to the youth category. So whether he can buy the computer or not. So according to that, we can further classify it as yes or no based on the computer buying, if he or she can buy the computer or not. So according to this, a tree like structure will be formed in the decision tree. And at the end we have to decide, we can analyze that which person will belong to which particular class. Basically we can use this decision tree for binary as well as the multi-class classification itself.
So participants, any more queries? Okay. So if no queries, let us conclude our session. So I really thank Dr. Akanksha Sharaf for being with us and enlightening us with various concepts regarding introduction to machine learning before the break session, and uh, topics related to supervised learning after the break session. Madam, the concepts are really clear. Even you explained the things regarding classification and clustering, and the differences you explained between this machine learning and versus artificial intelligence are very clear. And you have also given us clear understanding regarding why machine learning along with various real-time applications. That was very much useful. And the other things related to machine learning methods, applications, and supervised learning were very informative. Thank you for accepting our invitation to act as resource person and presenting such a good session, madam. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for inviting me, and thank you all the participants to have some discussion over here. And I hope that I didn't thought about 100% accuracy in my session, but I hope that at least 10% or 20% I have given some informative topics to you, so that you can, at least to those who are trying to start your research in the machine learning application, you can choose any one of the application which I have discussed. And you can also, in case of any query or anything else, you can contact me. I am very happy to help you further also. So thank you very much, and thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, madam. Yeah,
Thank
dear
you, sir.
participants, our afternoon session will be at 2:30 p.m. by Dr. Sanjay Kumar Panda from NIT Varangal, and he will be going to deal with the topic called knowledge representation. So everyone is informed to join the session by 2:25 p.m. Thank you so much.